Between paralysis and hunger, Hope is Born night was descending upon New York like a heavy curtain, carrying within its folds the brutality of winter, the scent of rain-soaked streets, and a suffocating loneliness that haunted wandering souls with no shelter. In an alley near Times Square, a dark-skinned boy sat curled against the freezing wind, trying in vain to pull his worn-out coat over his thin shoulders. His name was Marcus, and in his dim eyes lived the reflection of long years of deprivation, memories so harsh that time had failed to erase them. He was no older than 15, yet the fine wrinkles on his forehead, the dark hollows beneath his eyes, and the hardened features of his face made anyone who saw him assume he was far older. Street life steals childhood. It turns children into men long before their time. Hunger had been tearing at his insides for 2 days, and weakness made his head spin. Through the heavy darkness, a warm light spilled from the window of an elegant restaurant, as if that place belonged to a gentler world entirely separate from the city he knew. Marcus struggled to lift his head. Through the glass, he saw white tablecloths, shimmering chandeliers, steaming meals, and wealthy diners laughing and chatting. But what drew him was not only the food, it was the woman sitting by the window. She was in her mid-50s, pale-skinned, her grey hair neatly arranged on her shoulders, seated in a wheelchair. Nothing about her appearance suggested weakness. Her face held strength, the look of someone who had endured much and returned wiser. Yet sadness filled her eyes like a bottomless sea. Her name was Evelyn Ross, once one of the brightest businesswomen in the investment world, before she vanished from public life 5 years earlier. She had built an empire from nothing: technology firms, clean energy companies, human development programs, charitable initiatives. People used to speak of her iron will and her ability to transform her life in the face of any hardship. But everything ended in a single night. A tragic car crash took her husband's life and left her permanently paralyzed from the waist down. She withdrew from her companies, retreated into her mansion overlooking the Hudson River, and the fire within her faded. Marcus stared at her, wondering how someone surrounded by such luxury could look so unbearably lonely. Despite the vast distance between their worlds, he felt a hidden resemblance. He was isolated by poverty, she by illness. He was a wanderer with no support, she a woman with no warmth around her. He starved for food, she starved for connection. A cold wind cut through him, yet he didn't move. Then he saw the waiter remove her plate, barely touched, and carry it to the kitchen. His eyes followed it desperately. When he saw the remains thrown into the trash, something inside him broke. Without thinking, he pushed open the door and stepped inside. The diners froze, startled by the sight of a frail, homeless boy in such a refined place. A waiter rushed toward him angrily, but Marcus walked straight toward the woman. Standing before her, trembling, he forced the words out, "Ma'am, will you let me cure your illness? If you let me eat the rest of your food?" Silence fell. His voice was weak, but painfully sincere. Evelyn stared at him as if seeing the child she once wished she had. "Cure my illness?" she asked softly. "Are you a doctor?" He shook his head quickly. "No, but I know pain. I know what it feels like to be alone in this world. I can't make your legs move again, but maybe I can make your heart move." She did not expect such words from a homeless child. Something slid quietly into her soul, like a crack forming in a wall of ice. She raised a hand to the waiter. "Leave him. Let him sit. Bring him a fresh plate." He sat shyly and began to eat gently, though hunger pushed him to devour every bite. She watched him as he ate, and something warm, something long forgotten, stirred within her. She asked about his life, and he told her of his mother who died in a shelter due to neglect, of a father who disappeared, of nights under bridges and days searching dumpsters for leftovers, of people passing by him as if he were invisible. He spoke softly, but his words carried the weight of someone who had lived a century of suffering. His voice slipped past her ears and into her heart, awakening something numb inside her. When the restaurant finally closed, she asked gently, "Where will you sleep tonight?" He lowered his gaze. "Nowhere. Come with me," she said. Marcus hesitated, but something urged him to follow. It was the first time he had ever sat on leather seats inside a luxury car. Warm air wrapped around him, melting the cold from his bones. Evelyn watched him quietly, this fragile child who somehow managed to reach the deepest part of her. "Marcus," she asked, "do you trust me?" He swallowed. "I don't know, but I know you're not like the others." They arrived at her mansion overlooking the Hudson River. The place looked like a scene from a different universe. Glass walls, fountains reflecting moonlight. Marcus felt unworthy of taking even a single step inside, but her voice steadied him. "Don't worry, this place is big enough to hold both our pain." She took him to a warm guest room. Before leaving, she asked, "Why did you say you could heal my heart?" He hesitated only a second. "Because the greatest illness is living without someone who listens." The words struck her deeply. She left quietly. Marcus lay in the soft bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, out of shock, warmth, and most frightening of all, hope. Evelyn, alone in her room, watched the light from under his door and whispered to herself, "Can a homeless child bring life back to a woman who died inside?" She didn't know the answer, but she felt, for the first time in years, that her heart was alive.